Hi there, everyone. It's Tom Nevin here from Lockwood Witness Training. Thank you very much for joining. A question we often get asked as part of our expert witness training is how experts can best structure and present their expert reports. And we do discuss this in quite some detail on our courses. And also to help with this, we've provided a free template for experts to use when preparing their expert reports. Now, as part of that, we also thought it might be helpful to provide a bit of a walkthrough of that report to discuss it and some of the specific points therein, in the hope that it will assist experts when they're drafting their reports and using this template that we've got. So with that in mind, I'll bring up the template report on the screen and we can talk through the specific points therein. So you should have on the screen now the template report, and we'll walk through this report and discuss the various points therein. Now, before we do this, though, a quick disclaimer. Now, we don't obviously know your position, so we can't advise you on how to specifically draft your report in relation to an engagement. And there are obviously some very serious ethical and legal requirements which prevent us from doing this as well. If you do have any questions in relation to your specific engagement, you should speak to your instructing solicitors. So just generally, before we go into the detail of the report, there are some points which are quite important for most experts when drafting a report. Firstly, we do recommend that people use numbered pages and also numbered paragraphs. This makes it much easier to cross-refer to sections within your report and for others to refer to your report, such as during cross-examination. You also should make sure that your report is accurate. Now, this obviously goes without saying, but it's quite important because any errors in the report will be used to undermine your report. And as an expert, inevitably typos, etc., will be carried through into your report, and you have to develop a method to respond to these in cross-examination if challenged. And we do teach some specific points like this on our cross-examination courses. One further point is to make sure that you've read and understood the relevant rules and code of conduct relevant to your engagement, and make sure that that is for the correct jurisdiction, as sometimes there are some subtle differences between the various rules and the various jurisdictions. Okay, taking the actual report itself, the first part here is just a cover sheet, pretty straightforward, details of the proceedings and the parties, and it can be branded with either your or your organisation's branding. You'll then have, as the first part of the substantive report, an executive summary. This should be fairly brief and fairly simple. You should outline your instructions and give your opinion and conclusions there as well. The next point will be your instructions. This is what we've got at paragraph 2 there. You should just briefly outline your instructions and provide details of your instructing solicitors. It is also likely that your instructions are to be included with the report. We've suggested they be included as an annexure, and you should discuss with your instructing solicitors if you have any questions in relation to this. The next point we have is paragraph 3 here, which is the limitations and reliance that can be used or made in respect of the report. Now, this is something that you as an expert will have to think very carefully about. Obviously, from a professional liability standpoint, you want to limit your liability as much as possible. However, there is scope to be challenged on this during cross-examination, and it may be problematic for your evidence. Again, you should discuss the scope of these with your instructing solicitors. At paragraph 3.4, we do have a specific inclusion there where as an expert, you should note if staff have assisted you in relation to this engagement. Now, it's quite a common practice for staff to assist an expert in the preparation of a report, but it's essential that, notwithstanding this, the conclusions in the report should be the expert's own conclusions. Now, you could be cross-examined on the use of people to assist you to test that the opinion in the report is in fact your own, and to make sure that as an expert, you've actually done the work and you haven't relied too heavily on others to do the work for you. But certainly something to note, and you must include this in your report if you have been assisted. Moving down now to our paragraph 4, qualifications and experience. Now, this should be fairly self-explanatory. You are providing an opinion to the court on an area in which you are an expert, and you need to show that you are in fact an expert. Now, it's very important here, and more generally indeed in the report process, to delineate where your area of expertise is and to think very carefully about that. And in particular, to make sure you don't go beyond your area of expertise. Indeed, it's a common trick that barristers use when cross-examining expert witnesses to take them beyond their area of expertise. So that's something that you should be very, very mindful of. Moving down in the report now to paragraph 5, documents reviewed. Again, fairly self-explanatory. You can list these out in a list form, that's fine. But make sure that you have, in fact, actually reviewed these, and make sure that they actually say what you think they say, and that they support your case. Moving down to paragraph 6, assumptions in your report. Now, this is a big one. It's very important. Your assumptions will be critical to any report and your engagement more generally. And a challenge to your assumptions often forms the basis for the challenge to your report. So you have to think carefully about everything that you have assumed and list those out in the report. You should also consider whether the assumptions you have made are reasonable in the circumstances and you haven't just assumed things blindly. Moreover, you should also make sure or consider how your opinion would change if your assumptions are found to be incorrect. As we discuss on various courses that we do, it's a common line of cross-examination to challenge an expert on their assumptions and thus challenge the report and the conclusions in it. So in short, list out your assumptions here and think very carefully about them and challenges to them. Moving down now to paragraph 7, background. This should be fairly straightforward. It should just briefly discuss the proceedings and how the engagement arose. So to also paragraph 8 here, the issues to be addressed. These can be listed out just to focus your mind and anyone reading the report's mind on the issues that you're addressing in the report. Moving down again to paragraph 9, methodology. Now, this is the start of the substance of your report. This is where your technical skill is applied and technical points are raised. You should discuss all the methodologies available or potentially available to you. Discuss what they are, how they're applied, and the strengths and weaknesses of them, and why they have been, or indeed have not been, used. You can indeed use more than one methodology. Often this is a very good idea because hopefully they will give similar results and corroborate and support each other. This discussion of the methodologies themselves will be a fairly significant and substantial part of your report. And by explaining this to the court, you'll improve your credibility as a witness because you'll allow the court to understand the issues better and you'll better help the court be able to come to its own conclusion. Moving down now, we get to the consideration and application, our paragraph 10. Again, this is where you apply your technical skills as well. It's the application of the above methodology or methodologies to the facts and circumstances of the case. Here you should include your tests, calculations, etc. And crucially, you have to include your reasoning and thought process. It's very important. And indeed, the reasoning and thought process is often more important than the opinion itself, because it lets the court critically consider and understand the area in which you are providing expert witness and how you have come to your conclusions. By doing this, you'll also appear much more credible and helpful to the court. So make sure you include your reasoning and thought process with your consideration and application. Moving down now to paragraph 11. This is where you state your conclusion and opinion. It should basically summarize the above and state what you think is the answer, so to speak. Further down, final paragraph, paragraph 12 is the declaration for you as an expert witness. Now, this can be quite prescriptive. You'll have to look through the rules and code of conduct to determine the exact wording of this, and it's quite reasonable to discuss with your solicitors what that should be, what the words you should use are in this regard. But again, crucially, it's important that you've made sure that you've actually read and actually understood the rules and code of conduct, because ultimately, most of the time there is a sentence in there to say that you have read and understood those rules and code of conduct, and you'll look very silly in cross-examination if in fact you have not done so. Your annexures will be included next. We've got a couple in there, instructions and CV, but up to you what you included as part of annexures. There may be more or less depending on the engagement. Okay, well, look, thank you very much. Do hope that you've found this discussion helpful, and we do hope, of course, that you find the template itself very helpful. Now, expert report writing is quite difficult. It's a very unnatural way of writing for a very unusual audience. It's not an academic paper or board presentation or anything like that. It has a very different purpose, and it will be considered and analysed in a very different light. We teach more on this in our various training courses on both expert report writing and expert witness cross-examination. And we teach both the fundamentals and practicals of this. As usual, if you have any comments or queries, please do contact us, and links to our courses and to our contact details and to the template report will be contained below in the text. Thank you very much for your time.